from the name of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi being mentioned to the name of Colonel Govender, as well as some monies being transferred between some kingpins as well as police officers to carry out what seems like assassination. The social media platforms and everybody in South Africa have been asking themselves, is Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi being implicated again in what seems like a death squad that has hidden itself through the name of a task team going around carrying out assassinations in the guise of shoot to kill?
Shoot to kill. Getting the police a license to murder is not the answer.
Yes, shoot the bastards. Hard not to crack incorrigible criminals.
Don't shoot anybody that doesn't shoot you. But whoever shoots you must understand what does it mean.
Criminals who are challenging police, as it was indicated, who are pointing guns at police. We are saying police must not be apologetic. They must shoot them.
In this video, I wanted us to actually talk about the testimony of the IPID investigator that has came forward at the Madlanga Commission. And I'm not going to lie, I have been so shocked throughout his testimony. Let us get to it.
And during our interview, there was a recording that was given to us. A recording where a person by the name, where Boven Loftus contacted Clive Naicker, who is the owner of Roadstar Trucking, Towing and Trucking. So he contacted Clive Naicker, and in that recording, he inquired from Clive Naicker why he put a 2.5 million hit on him. It's clear in the recording. He asked Clive Naicker, why you got a problem with me, and how is it that you put a 2.5 million hit at me? The recording indicates that he is aware that Clive Naicker engaged Deena Govender and his team to take him out.
The first starting point is y'all's reaction to the testimony of the Deputy Director of the IPID, which is Mr. Barnabas John. And I was shocked that a lot of people were like, how is this person trying to implicate General Mkhwanazi? What type of agenda does this guy have? Why is he implicating Mkhwanazi, our hero? What is actually going on? And the social media actually was so split, because others were like, why is it that now when Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi's name is being mentioned in some wrongdoing, you guys are panicking? I thought you guys want justice. And in the ways of justice, or in the route of trying to find justice, such things obviously happen. Others were coming with their own theories that, oh, Madlanga Commission, I think is trying to be neutral, is trying to neutralize everything, because people were starting to think that they were pro-Mkhwanazi, they were only investigating the wrongdoers, or not investigating the other side that is actually accusing Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi of wrongdoing. So now it looks like the Madlanga Commission wants to hear all sides of the stories. So that is why we are hearing about this organized crime and how police officers are involved in some serious allegations in KZN. And the question remains, what has Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi done about this? Was the shoot to kill a right formula to begin with to deal with crimes and any form of criminals in South Africa? Is it the right approach, or we should take the approach that the IPID wants us to take? And that approach is, we need to arrest these people, no matter how dangerous they can be. The police officers need to be strong and be strong. Go there and try find ways to apprehend them, even though they are shooting at them. So it looks like that is currently the debate. But it's so important for us to understand this context and historical background before we can understand the testimony of Mr. John. Because it's a very important testimony and raises serious allegations of police oversight and how police officers have been used by the so-called rivalries in different industries, especially with the cash in transit industry, the drugs industry, as well as the taxi industry. So those three industries, we have to, in order for us to understand this testimony and the importance of it in highlighting the role of police officers and these so-called task team, we need to understand this background first.
I find it a little bit disingenuous when the IPID official speaks about these raids taking place between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning. That is when you'd expect a raid to take place. That's when you would most probably find people together who are acting in common purpose and maybe planning a robbery the following day, or that may be their hideout where they've gone and informers have given that kind of information to the authorities. So that would be the expected time frame that these type of raids take place. However, the issues raised by the IPID official are of concern. Any extrajudicial killings are of concern. What worries me is that it's almost been presented as fact that these allegations are that the police set out to kill these individuals and that civilians are caught in the crossfire, there aren't enough weapons. And the narrative that's been put across today is that these are in fact extrajudicial killings, whereas in actual fact that has not been established. What has been established in a lot of these cases is that those were suspects involved in major crimes. What has been established in some instances is that shots were fired at the SAPS members. What has also been established, and we know this from previous cases, is that there may not be the same amount of weapons as there are suspects. But like the Commissioner pointed out, if you come under fire from a house and you return fire, you don't know who else is in that house. And the police also have to be wary themselves of getting shot. So when people are acting in common purpose, if you pull over a vehicle, for example, there's 4 occupants, but there's only 2 firearms and they open fire on the police officers, the police can't not return fire. And the other 2 people in the vehicle are invariably involved in that particular crime that was or is going to be committed. And I think that applies to these safe houses. When these safe houses get taken down, there are people in those houses that for the majority of the time are involved in what we call the doctrine of common purpose. They're all involved in a crime that has taken place or that's been planned to take place in a very short time space.
So this whole thing is not a new thing. These allegations that we are hearing, we've heard from Mr. John, are not new. And if you guys can see the approach that it seems like this whole thing is taking, is the approach that we saw at the Govender inquiry. So the Govender inquiry was actually investigating what we are currently dealing with right now at the Madlanga Commission. So the Govender inquiry was literally going through what we call the death squad, which was the Cato Manor unit, of which I heard that somehow it looks like they might also talk about the Cato Manor unit. I don't know when, but they're also going to feature the Cato Manor unit somehow. So to those who don't know the Cato Manor unit is the unit that is linked to Johan Boven. And Johan Boven is the one that was at the center of the spectacles in the Govender inquiry. Him, as well as Shamila Batoyi, who exonerated him, dropped the charges against him, had some settlement agreement with him, which was classified. To this day, we don't know what is contained in the settlement agreement between Johan Boven and the NPA, which was at that time, the head of the NPA was Shamila Batoyi. And it looks like Chauke was not happy about that, challenged those decisions, which have led to Shamila Batoyi then asking for the president to have this inquiry to check if whether Chauke is fit to hold office. And if I tell you the revelations that were there at the Govender inquiry were so explosive. But there's a difference between the task teams as well as the Cato Manor unit. There's a huge difference. But there is some elements that are very, very similar. We should not act like, they're too different. There is similarities. And similarities are mostly the money trails and the police officers unaliving people, in a way assassinating people, just because you are just a suspect.
He's always the one carrying a shotgun, a pistol and shooting.
Chair, it's difficult to can say that, but at one stage when we were that side, when we were consulting with a number of people, interviewing people about this, at one stage we once had information that between the 3, Eric, Warrant Officer Mostert, Captain Van Tonner and Eric now, there was a competition of how many people can you shoot.
What makes it worse is that they would just handpick whoever that they want. And from what we heard is that there's 77 cases of people that have been seized. And of all those 77 cases, there is literally none. Yes, there's literally zero, zilch. None of these cases there that are where the suspect was properly identified and the police did their proper investigations before they got to the conclusions of going to then go either they arrested that person or ended up unaliving them. So we are dealing with something that is quite similar to the Cato Manor unit.
IPID investigated over 300 cases, of which 77 cases involve the deaths of 149 people as a result of police action by the task team. Now, Commissioner, we dealt with over 300 cases, but I zoned in on the 77 cases, which is in the attached list. In this 77 cases, these shootings were committed by members of the task teams.
But before we can get to the similarities and the differences, you have to understand this testimony. But the Cato Manor unit, literally, it was doing almost similar things, unaliving people. They were promoted, they were getting bribes, they were always cheered up after they will unalive these taxi people. Even though someone can go and have an interdict, which is similar to the case, one of the cases we're going to talk about here, they would get an interdict, people would get an interdict, and still the unit will still unalive that person and will not have mercy at all. But as I've said, there is differences because they would celebrate after the unalivings, and there were videos and pictures of them celebrating. There were videos and pictures of them torturing these people. There are videos and pictures of them coming across as if they are racist because they were targeting a specific race.
What is hard to understand about this unit is their loyalty and dedication. The contradiction is stark. On the one hand, they appear to be committed to the police force and justice. And on the other, they are accused of the most serious of crimes. The question South Africans must ask is, can we afford to have cops fight crime at any cost?
And if you guys can also remember the Minister of Police, which is Minister Kachalia, came forward when he first came as the Minister of Police. One of the things that he was against was, he said, Skop and donor. Was it Skop and donor, guys? Please fix me, those who understand Afrikaans, or even if you don't understand Afrikaans, you understand this word. He called it Skop and donor, if I'm not mistaken, which is shoot to unalive.
I think a lot of South Africans would have come to a point where they believe that our laws and the constitution are very soft on criminals and criminality. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Very often we've had ministers, with all due respect to them, and national commissioners who appear to think that the problem that can be solved through tough rhetoric, strong language and firmness must be communicated to the public. But I do not believe that Skopskit and Donor brings down crime. In fact, what it does is criminalize the police. Shoot to kill. Giving the police a license to murder is not the answer.
And he said this shoot to unalive is a very problematic thing for the police to actually engage in. And I think I once had some kind of like a debate that is on those lines to people that have been on the channel for the longest of times. I think in my early days as a YouTuber, I was talking about this, and we once even had a debate about the conduct of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, because every time, for some of us, we knew him as one officer that doesn't play with criminals. He was always trending on media houses every now and again for some unaliving that happened, that 7 people have been shot, have been gunned down because they were doing something. The police then retaliated and shot at those people back. And people will start having debates as to the balance between this self-defense as well as a right to life because of these actions. And people started asking questions about this conduct of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, in as much as there were people that were supporting what he was doing. So a large social media presence was supporting what he was doing. But also there were those that were asking questions regarding the right to life and whether really this whole thing of unaliving these criminals is the best thing. But we know the high levels of crime in South Africa has made people to not really feel sorry for criminals, because we know those ones, they don't feel sorry for you. They will unalive you, they'll finish you off.
It's a very, very broad statement to make. There's no way that all the people that have been killed in shootouts with the police or during raids were not involved in crime. The fact that weapons were found on those premises and that those weapons may be positively linked by ballistics to crimes that have been committed is indicative that these individuals were targets of investigations. If a docket was closed because the suspect on that is deceased, then it matches up because he went to great lengths to say that the dockets are closed very shortly thereafter. Well, you can't investigate a dead person. If the dead person is your prime suspect, an informer's given you information or intelligence officer have given you information where that suspect is with his gang and he gets taken out, why must that docket remain open? It becomes an inquest, or because it's a police shooting, it becomes the issue of IPID to now investigate. And if IPID is so sure of their facts that these are extrajudicial killings, because what struck me as strange today is that it came across more as confrontational than as an allegation that these extrajudicial killings are taking place.
Now, with this context and background, let us get to the testimony of Mr. John. So Mr. John starts by talking about task teams and different task teams that are working in the SAPS, and mostly implicated Mr. Govender, which is Deena Govender, which is a lieutenant colonel, and how they've been investigating certain issues like the taxi industry, tow trucks, like the drugs, and he was basically talking about this shoot to kill approach. And he was exposing the rogue KZN police operations and the fact that, there was a case of 9 people that were shot, but you could only find 3 firearms. And that was mostly, I think it's an incident that had happened in Inanda and KwaMashu. And he said that, people just stay in the premises doing nothing. And the police officers would just go there, unalive everybody, including the victims.
And what is the significance of the number of firearms found at the scene? Twice you said that far fewer firearms would be found at the scene. Like you said, for example, 9 people are killed and 3 firearms are found. You gave another example.
Yes.
What's the significance of that?
Commissioner,
because even if there are 9 people, if there are 3 firearms, and if indeed those 3 firearms have been used or are being used, they may kill. So I'm not quite sure I follow the significance of the number.
Commissioner, in fact, with investigations, it shows that some of if we say 3 firearms are used and there were 9 people, then 6 of them were unarmed.
And to him, that was really, really problematic. Then he spoke about the 300 cases that are between the years 2023 and 2026. And he said that 77 cases, they involved the unalivings of people. And out of that 77, 149 people were unalived as a result of the task team. And he said all those people were unlawfully identified, meaning that their names don't even appear in the investigative dockets, of which those issues are serious issues that even the commissioners raised. And he said that right now, in as much as they have this high volume of cases, they're still investigating them. There's not even one that they've started with the prosecution, which also raises a red flag about them as the IPID, as to whether how serious are they taking this whole situation? How serious are they taking these cases and these investigations? If they have a problem with the conduct of the police, why would you take so many years for you to actually go and start prosecuting? Because they have not prosecuted when it comes to this case. He mostly also spoke about how it's easy for these scenes to be cleaned up, and that after the shooting, the IPID is supposed to take over. But in most cases, that doesn't happen, because even the people that might have been the one that shot these suspects, they would go. And you find that that person should not leave the scene, should stay in the scene so that they can take the fingerprints, they can take everything that is necessary. But sometimes you find yourself in a situation whereby these people, they will leave and you'll be like, okay, how do we even take the evidence that we are looking for, the residues of the gun and all of those things, because that's the evidence that the IPID is looking for. And also they are complaining that at most cases they are told later on, probably even after the scene has even been tampered with, whereas they're supposed to be called immediately and they're supposed to go there immediately, even though there is like a lot of questions as to whether they have to go immediately after receiving a call or they have to go after the first respondent or the first person that went to the scene saw the scenes and looks at the scene. So it's still not clear as to when is the IPID supposed to go. I would think that since they are really involved, they want to know everything, they want to investigate the police, isn't it that they should go there as soon as a call is logged? But you find that the reason why that is the case, they wait for someone to go there, is because they want that person to go and confirm if whether indeed something like that actually happened. I don't know if they do have fake calls. Maybe that's why they don't want to, go and end up entertaining a fake call. Hence, they just want someone to go to the scene first. Who's the first respondent? First respondent that went to the scene is the one that then calls the IPID to come and attend to the scene.
Because we only get the report when they get to the crime scene. However, the members who work at maybe they are the members that work in the shift who attend the crime scene, they're actually supposed to be the people calling us also, because it says that when they become aware that that crime falls within the mandate of IPID, they also supposed to call us. When they call the duty officer, they're supposed to call IPID also. Sometimes you get to the crime scene, the LCRC is there before us, because they call the LCRC, they call all the other role players beside calling IPID to the scene.
And the IPID contact, whether it's a number or a person, do you say every police officer has it as a matter of course? So if I'm at the scene where there's a shooting and I'm part of that scene, are you saying that every member on that scene who was part of that incident would know who to call at IPID?
Sure, in majority of the stations, they do have our standby number. We have a dedicated standby number, which are members on standby have their cell number. However, the station can communicate with the radio control, and radio control is aware of which IPID official is on standby. So there is that a number that they can call. They can call the radio control.
Then he then takes us through the cash in transit cases. The cash in transit then gives us a glimpse of how the police officers actually operate in such cases, that whenever they go there, they wear civilian clothes, they wear masks. They don't go like wearing like police officers. So they go there like not showing that they're actually police officers. And that's when we see the high volume of them unaliving people. They unalive people even when the people are not actually retaliating. And what makes it worse is that they don't just go and unalive people. They make sure that they wait for certain times, like 11 p.m. until 3 a.m., where there's no one, there's no witnesses. Then they then execute their task, so that if they do something unlawful, there's no witnesses to corroborate or to deny or to do whatever. It is just them and even probably the deceased who won't even say anything because they are no more. And he says there was a case where that happened, and when they arrived at the scene, there was no high caliber rifle, there was no explosives, no component manufacturing explosives or money to show that these people were involved in the cash in transit. They only found the handmade or the homemade firearms. As I've said, he's complaining a lot about the fact that these people were not identified. There's nothing about them in the docket to show that they are being investigated and that they are suspects, meaning high chances these people were not even involved in the cash in transit. In my mind, I was like, it looks like Mr. John is coming across as a naive person, because do you think that these people that are doing cash in transits are that foolish, that after committing the crime they'll just sit there in their houses with everything? I just think that definitely it won't be there. Even if they were the real people that actually committed the crime, they won't be there. They will go and hide that particular evidence somewhere else. I don't think they'll just sit with the evidence. But according to Mr. John, if you are a suspect, when they come and arrest you, they need to find you with all the evidence. You need to have all the evidence. We'll talk about how this thing ties up to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, guys.
That in respect of these cash in transit or these task team cases, that it is wrong that they act on a tip-off when there is no docket, there's no case number, there's no known suspect in advance. Is that the criticism? Is that a criticism? And is that if it is that a criticism that you are raising?
No, Commissioner. In these cases, there are dockets. There are dockets in these cases that are open prior to them getting the information, because the cash in transit take place maybe a day earlier. And then they receive, so there is a docket open on that date when the cash in transit take place. There is an investigating officer that is identified to investigate that case. The information that comes to the task team is not provided to the investigating officer, or there's no communication with that investigating officer to say that we've received information that there are cash in transit suspects that's hiding at a particular place. For the investigating officer now to investigate that matter, they simply go out there, the task team themselves, leaving the investigating officer out, because at none of the scenes that our members went to that they found the investigating officer. So the task team, they go themselves out to the place where they receive the information, and then the shooting take place.
And what is worse is that he's relying on these recordings, video recordings that are circulating on social media, that even when you look at these recordings that are circulating on social media, these people that have been unalived are not in those videos. Meaning that high chances they are not really the people that might have committed the crime. Guys, God, what type of naivety? What is it, naivety? What type of, like, how can someone be this naive? It's insane. Like, I was so disappointed in how naive our general there, our director is. He's so naive, and his line of thoughts is what is making me to even worry even more. That why would you think like that? So you think criminals are foolish? Are that foolish that they'll even appear in cameras, they appear in recordings? Most people are not foolish, and they know that when they're going to execute this thing, especially during the day, people are going to take videos. They are going to make sure that they hide as much as they can. One or two might appear, but do you think the whole crew will appear? I was so disappointed. He says most of these people, they were not surveilled. There was no tracking on their phones before they even got arrested. Therefore, there were no suspects. His reasoning of that he's using to say someone is not a suspect is what is making me to worry even more. Even more. Then he spoke about the first case of a guy who I think was suspect in a case cash in transit, and the police, the task team went in there. They found the girlfriend hiding because she was threatened, and they obtained that girlfriend's statement, which has went to the NDPP, which should then assist in deciding if whether they're going to prosecute on this matter.
There was no evidence to prove that he was involved in planning cash in transit. So what they're supposed to do is that when they receive that information, they're supposed to open an inquiry and then do the investigations from that inquiry, from the information that they received. And when they've done the investigation to prove that this suspect is part of the cash in transit syndicate and they can do proper linkages, then they can go to make an arrest. But what they did is that they received the information and they rushed off to go to arrest the person. Armed with the R5 rifles and pistols, it is alleged that the suspect wanted to change and the members accompanied him into the bedroom. The members allege that the suspect grabbed one of the SAPS members' R5 while at the same time pulling his firearm from under a pillow. The member alleged that he and the suspect lost balance. When the suspect got up, he fired his pistol in the direction of the member, missing him and his colleague. The member fired 4 rounds at the suspect, fatally wounding the suspect. The deceased sustained 4 gunshot wounds.
That's one of the incidents. Then he spoke about the case number 2, which was a case that happened in Pinetown. And this incident was an incident that involved an unaliving of a chairperson of the taxi industry, which is Mr. Boy Dladla. And Boy Dladla was unalived, was shot, and then they started doing the investigation. And the first person that they had, and the person that was heading this investigation was Captain, I think it's Roger or something like that, around those names. So this Captain Roger or Rodriguez, something like that, is the one that was chairing this thing, is the one that was giving the commands and everything. And he's saying this captain allowed for someone to be shot. There were 2 suspects in this case. The first one was Mr. Ngobo. Then there was another suspect, which was already shot. The first one was killed on his way to Gauteng. And then this one, Mr. Ngobo, is the one that they came and shot. They started shooting at his car. This guy luckily survived. Called Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, who told him to go to Pavilion. When he arrived at Pavilion, he was then, trapped because there were securities, there were SAPS there. Even these people that are part of this team of Mr. Roger came in as well. Then they took him to his house. And I think it was his house because they said that when he arrived there, he said, he was questioned about the firearm. Then he said, he needs to go pee. And then when he went to go pee in his sink at the toilet, there was a gun. Under his sink, there was a gun. And they then unalived him because they was about to remove that gun to actually unalive them.
It is alleged that the police questioned the suspect about the firearm that was used in the Pinetown murder, and he took them to his friend's residence in Hillcrest. Whilst at the said premises, the suspect requested to use a toilet. At the relevant time, he was allegedly accompanied by 2 police officers. The police alleged that the suspect reached for a firearm that was hidden underneath the sink in the toilet. One police officer then wrestled the suspect for the firearm, during which a round went off, at which point the second police officer shot the deceased.
But there's many things that was so much of a red flag in this case, especially considering that the number plate was false that the TOT team was using, and they feel like they used the police officers who were rivalries of Abu Mr. Ngobo and others that were suspects in the unaliving of the chairperson. They used the police to actually fight those people, and that actually worked, which is almost similar, as I've said, with the Cato Manor unit, which was known as the Death Squad. Then he also spoke about the case number 3, about the tow truck industry versus the drug industry. And he said that the hotspots of that particular situation was Charlesworth, South Area, Phoenix, and Durban. All of this, guys, is happening in KZN, right? We're still in the KZN scene. It was arrested and it went through disciplinary proceedings to show that they were actually involved in this thing of working with taxi industry rivalries to fight their battles and all of that, and deal with their enemies. Then we also have Mr. Govender, who was involved in this serious unaliving case that involves the tow truck industry and the drug industry. And here, the victims was Ryan Santos, Chase Flynn, Boven Loftus, as well as Michigan Popolind, as well as Sihle Zondi. So those are the people that were involved here. So here, what happened is that these people went to the flat of Mr. Boven Loftus and started firing shots and unalived everybody that was there. And they said that the reason why they acted like that is because Mr. Boven was implicated in serious and many cases of unaliving and attempted unaliving. But when they were interviewing the family members of Mr. Boven, they then find out that actually Mr. Boven is having serious conflict with the rivalry. So the rivalry believes that Mr. Boven unalived his uncle, which the rivalry, his name is Mr. Clive Naicker. So Mr. Clive Naicker is the one that actually seems like he ordered this hit using the Governor's task team. And the family then released this recording. And this recording is just a conversation between Mr. Boven as well as Mr. Clive, talking about, oh, so you placed this hit on me of 2.5 million. And that now becomes true, and a proof that now is used at the Madlanga Commission because the Lieutenant Colonel Govender, we're seeing monies in his account and his wife's account that are showing that high chances they might have received this 2.5 million rands. Remember, this person is a person that earns around 26,000 rands, but is able to afford a house that amounts to 2.3 million rands. So there's that 2.5 million rands that Mr. Boven spoke about. Then we have Colonel Govender buying a property that is worth 2.3 million rand. Is able to pay all those transfer costs and everything. That is almost, actually it was 500,000 if you count it all. 500,000 paid to the conveyancer, like paid in cash to the conveyancer. And all of that obviously would make you think probably he might have received that 2.5 million, especially since all of this is happening at the time when this whole heat was going on. Because the police, the task team of Govender did execute the task and unalive this guy. And what is worse is that he was able to go and get an interdict to stop this unaliving in court. But clearly it was not enough because the unaliving still happened. But what makes the matters worse is that the scene was even constructed, like was even tampered with. They say that even the bodies, the way they were put, you can see that literally the scene was tampered with after this unaliving.
Okay. Commissioner, the 63.3.1, between the 29th of August 2022 and the 18th of December 2023, cash deposits aggregating to 2,343,050 rand were made into the bank accounts of Lieutenant Colonel Deena Govender and his wife, who is also a SAPS member. Sorry, it's 2,034,350 rand. Correction, 2,034,350 rand. That's cash deposits.
Then 66.3.2.
66. Okay. On the 15th of May 2023. Cash amounts aggregating to a total of 179,800 rand for the benefit of Lieutenant Colonel Deena Govender and his wife were deposited into the bank account of the conveyancers, attending to the transfer of a 2.3 million property that they had purchased.
Their defense was that we did all of this because when we arrived there, trying to do our investigation without a search warrant, these people fired shots at us, and we defended ourselves by firing shots back. And what is so interesting about this case is that even the IPID knew that the police were about to conduct this particular operation. But they couldn't just go and arrest before they could actually carry out the operation. So they had to first carry out the operation, and then after then, that's when they're going to do all of this. And they're going to go to the scene. And what is worse is that the police officers, the task team members, kept on going to Mr. Boven's house. And they were threatening him. Even the father said she's going to testify and corroborate the story that he was being threatened. They were telling him that actually we're going to unalive you. We're going to deal with you. And indeed, they actually did unalive. But the question is, how much money did Colonel Govender actually receive the money that they say he received from this rivalry of Mr. Boven, which is Mr. Clive Naicker? So we're not sure whether that is true, but the evidence makes it to look like it's more likely. So what this guy did, which is the director from IDAC, Mr. John, came with all the receipts and the evidence to show that there's something going on with the task teams in KZN.
Mr. Hippolyte would later be one of the men killed on the 1st of April 2023. Members of the task team recovered an alleged stolen vehicle which was found on the premises. Gregory Loftus informed Lieutenant Colonel Deena Govender that the vehicle was towed by one of the drivers being employed by Bevan Loftus and was being retained because the towing and storage costs remain unpaid. He claimed to have shown the SAPS members an advertisement in the independent newspaper indicating that the vehicle was to be sold to recover the outstanding cost. Members of the task team also claim to have recovered a AK-47 AK-7 bullet from the property of Boven Loftus. The task team arrested Gregory Loftus. Gregory alleged that Lieutenant Colonel Govender stated that Gregory Loftus would be released if Boven handed himself to the police.
I had information that these guys were going to come, the Hawks were going to come, because they were signing for those 2 dockets at Belay to justify them coming to pick him up. Yeah. And the person that informed him about this said, do not allow yourself to be arrested. These guys are going to kill you.
And it's not something that we should shy away from. It's something that we should look at heads on. And we are not saying that, yeah, people are criminals and stuff. I just think that what is being pushed here is the fact that there is something going on. There is something wrong. And the South Africans wake up and see if whether we are dealing with another Cato Manor unit squad here that is going around being unallowed. How is Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi connected? Lieutenant Mkhwanazi, we know, is the police commissioner. And if such things are happening under his supervision and he's not doing anything about it, it looks like he's also part of this whole thing. It looks like he's allowing for this whole thing to actually happen. That is how he features in all of this. I don't think it's a bad thing that we are hearing this. We said we want the truth. We said we want justice. And we are hearing all sides of the story. What we should be asking now is the side of the story of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, of which I think it would be very interesting to hear what he has to say. It's the same as what we heard from Musumuzi Ken Madlanga, the allegations that he met with Lieutenant Mkhwanazi. He came and clarified why he never disclosed that Madlanga Commission or ad hoc, trying to protect Yenalo Madlanga. And Madlanga then is the one that ruined things for himself, because now Mkhwanazi had to tell us everything about that particular meeting, including the fact that he recorded the conversations. But what I know is that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is part of the people that have been at the forefront of trying to fight the violence in KZN, including the taxi violence. We know that people like Abo Getsemane have been, at the forefront, coming and saying that they don't like that Mkhwanazi and all of that. But the question that I have is that enough for us to actually crucify and start thinking that Mkhwanazi is trying to hide something? Just think that the best way is to just give him a chance and an opportunity for him to say his side of the story. Nonetheless, guys, let me hear what you guys think about everything that is happening. Otherwise, me, myself, and I will see you guys on my next upload. Bye.